Hello everyone, thank you for coming. This is a presentation about how to build apps in digital signage. And in this presentation I will explain what digital signage is. I will also explain how Yodeck plays a part in this, which is the company I work for. And we will see some practices, mostly front-end. It's the apps that we built in Yodeck. And you were going to see, let's say, some ways to think about them and how to solve the problems that come along with them. So my name is Ioannis. I work at Yodeck for the last 4.5 years. It's basically what I do all these years, creating apps for the Yodeck ecosystem. So yeah, that's pretty much all about me. As I said, I will explain what digital signage is and Yodeck, and we will see some stuff about how to build a good design for digital signage apps and how to make them stable to work even offline. So let's see what Yodeck is. So as you can understand, Yodeck is a digital signage solution platform. So what digital signage actually means is that it's the way to manage your screens and their display, for example, images, videos, and you will see later what else you can display in that. All of that from the easiness of your laptop, just opening up a browser, logging into your account, and doing everything from there. So you only connect to your screens once, either downloading an app on your Android TV or using the different players that we have and support. So to explain some more about that, as you can see, one of the main features that we have is remote management, as I said earlier, and scheduling. So what that actually means is that you can select what is going to be displayed on your screens, what time precisely, if it's going to be a repeated event, just using a calendar, as we usually do for the meetings and stuff like that, but for the media that we want to display on the screens. Also, I did mention earlier that we do support videos, images. We also support other media formats like PDF, PowerPoints, audio files, even streaming we do support, and web pages. All of that you can combine it creating playlists. So I think playlists are self-explanatory. You just put media back to back and they will display in that order on your screens. So what are the players that we do support? The first one, and it's what we call and we recommend the Yodeck player. It's a software built onto the Raspberry Pi, which we use. And it's the first player that we created in Yodeck, and it's also our, let's say, main and recommended, as I said, the player. It gives a lot of freedom since it's our own software on it, so we can do a lot of stuff with it and play around. But also in the past years we have expanded our ranges of player. As you can see, we do have Android, we do have some web players like in Chrome and Edge. The Fire Stick is one of the latest, if I remember correctly. And we'll keep expanding that aspect to bring more screens into the digital signage ecosystem. And as I said, we're going to talk about apps. So what apps actually are. This is a small collection of them that we do support. You can think of them as media that are going to be displayed on your screens, either a little clock or the weather, so that you can always know what's going on. And you can see that we also support others like dashboards, like Power BI, social media like LinkedIn, and more. So just to make it crystal clear, let's say that you want to upload 2 images and you want them to be displayed on your screen. Then you just upload the images. You do add them in a playlist, since that's the way you want them to be displayed. You can select how much time each image is going to be displayed for. And then you go to your screen view, which all of these views in the portal have a lot of more components, but I'm just showing you here the most important ones. In each screen, you can name it however you want, so you can recognize which screen is which, and you can then select the screen content you want to display. Here, obviously, I have added the playlist that we created earlier, and then you press the button Save and Push to this screen. There are other buttons like push to all screens and stuff like that, but we're not going to see the Yodeck software here. We're going to see how to build apps for Signage. So let's see more about how to use an app. Since for an app you don't have to upload the media yourself and use it in any way, you will have to select the app from our app gallery, which will show you all the options for the apps. For example, here I'm showing you the analog clock that you can find on the top right corner of the first image. And then we do show a form that the user will have to complete so that the user can customize it however he wants to display the correct information. Then this works as a media, and you can also add it in a playlist or however you want, as we discussed. So the apps are just single-page apps. It's not really something extremely sophisticated or something like that. It's really simple. We currently work with React mainly. So if you have ever worked in front-end environment, you can understand that it's not something that it's really difficult to start working on. You just create a new app, and you will follow the guidelines that Yodeck provides that we will also discuss a little bit later. So how does the app work in the player? Is that, let's say, for example, in the Raspberry Pi, sorry. Sorry, that's for me, right? Okay, yeah. So, I'm gonna do it like this, probably. Okay. So yeah, in the Raspberry Pi, for example, even in the playlist, what's going to be called for an app to be displayed is that the player will load up a browser, let's say Chrome, for example, and this browser will be loaded up with a Python script. After the browser is loaded up and booted up, we do have a Chrome extension that works locally in the Raspberry Pi. This Chrome extension then loads a new tab with all the correct information about what app to be displayed, for how long, and other critical information for the app to work. And all of that is loaded from local files because the Raspberry Pi and all the players download the code from the platform first. That's why we did push earlier, to show that we can show the player that you have to download these files and now you can load them locally. So really, after you press push, you can just be sure that the app will be played and it will be displayed on your screen. But if it will play correctly or else, it will be mostly on the app that you create. Because some apps do require internet, like the social media or Power BI. For example, the analog clock can play offline just once time the internet to download the files, and then it's good to go. And the last important part is that since the player have to communicate with the app somehow, we do have an HTTP server in Python, which the app can communicate with this server through an API so that it can start, stop, and do some extra stuff. So that's the idea behind apps. And here we have an example of Viva Engage. It's an app. Viva Engage is a Microsoft platform, and we do support an integration for it. using their API. Here you can see some options in the form. I don't know if it's clear in the slides. But you can select the type of posts that you want to display, the number of them. And as you can see, we do have a lot of options about a number of posts, duration, expiration, refresh rate. So that's what I want to talk about, that usually when you create an app, it's really expected for the user to be able to interact with it, to be able to refresh it, to be able to click around and play around with the app. But that's not the case in digital signage, because in digital signage, you just want to have a screen and never take any role in that after setting it up. You just want to display stuff. So here we have a very interesting combination of having a single page app that has no interaction. There is no need for having a user to actually interact with it. So now the user experience becomes non-interactive, and you have to create a way of thinking about that. And the best way to think about it is use the times. That's why before, as I showed you, we do have so many options about the timing, because the number of posts and the duration of each post to be displayed does do exactly that. It shows how much the app will be displayed on the screen, and also with the refresh rate option, you do control when the data will be collected. So that's pretty important in digital signage. You don't have this option to let the user refresh it on his own convenience. And also you can't do amazing, let's say, stuff with the animation, stuff like that, because it will have to be something consistent. So that because of all of that, we have decided to mostly work with slideshows. Obviously, there are many different cases where the slideshows can't be part of the solution. For example, the analog clock, there's no reason for it to be a slideshow, it's just one clock that displays the time. But we see that with the most apps, for example, dashboard apps and social media apps or news apps, it's usually the best way to just create a slideshow, because it gives an easy way to control the data and an easy and a fluent way for the user to understand how he controls the data. So that's why we have decided to work mostly with slideshows, as you see here, because combining the number of posts, obviously that's just a GIF I created from screencasting, so it's not how the apps actually works in general, it's just a small snippet. But you can see that we just have, let's say, this slideshow item component that which we load every time we just want to change the data in the page. And that's why we have to, as I say here, split content, because when you're working with a way that your data is shown in a slideshow, that's obviously a solution to the problem that the user can't scroll himself or something like that. So when you create slideshows, you have to be able to understand when each context is different and can be cut off from a screen to be created into a new slideshow and a new slide. So it's really about the way of thinking of an app, and that you actually have to display everything in a specific time, in a specific manner, without the user being there. So, of course, all these years in the apps, I have learned some lessons, because it's also my first job as a front-end engineer. And we have also done some wrongs, thankfully not to the users, but we did waste a lot of development time for stuff that never worked out. The most clear example I have for that is my experience with us trying to integrate Microsoft Excel to our screens. That's why I say it never excelled. The problem was that at that point of time, we were trying to find the balance between how much the design team has to work on something, how much it is development work, how much it's product work. We were trying to balance things out. And we knew that Excel is an app that has a lot of data, so we have to give a lot of options to the user to control that data and how they will be displayed. And we did a little bit of research. We found out that the Excel, they do provide an iframe code, which is really easy to embed into a single page app. We also found out that you can play around with the URL that is being loaded into that iframe, and we let it at that. And then we focused on the form. And that never worked out because when we actually got to the form after meeting with the design and the product team, we found out that when you put that iframe that the Microsoft Excel generates onto your screen, when you try to apply your own zoom methods or something like that, it just zooms out or zooms in back to the original state. So it was not digital signage friendly in itself. There was no easy, let's say, and fast way to extract the data from the API and create our own design, since we have already used all the resources into the form of the app. And so we never released that because it was never going to work the way we wanted to. So that's why I say that we have two designs, because there's actually the design of the user interface, which is the form, and there's also the design that is going to be displayed on the screen. And okay, it might seem obvious, the focus on the right thing, everyone says that, but as I said, we wasted so much resources, so much meetings, that we did have a retro. If you work with Scrum or Agile, you will know the retrospective meetings. And we were like, we have to make some rules about how we work. And the rule was that since the output is what the user and his own clients will see, then it's the first thing that we will have to find out before going to the form. Because if you find out how you will be able to display something on the screen, how you will collect the data and stuff like that, you will then be able to much easier find the way to make it possible for the user to tamper with it. So yeah, that was the story and the lesson that we learned. And now, as I said earlier about the zoom out and zoom in thing and the difficult things that we have to work around with the digital signage world is coming from the layouts that Yodeck provides and, as you will see later, the screen sizes in general. So the layouts is the easiest way to explain what's the difficulty here. So we do provide a way that instead of just a playlist, you can create your own layouts and put images, make them smaller, bigger, add a playlist into that layout. So you can always have, let's say, a clock on the top right or a weather app on the top left, and you have a main content on your screen. And that is giving us some trouble with design. Because as you can see, since you can do all of that with a layout, that means that you can do all that with just having a screen, because not all screens are 16:9 ratio. So you'll have to be able to distinct the use case for each app and how you want it to be displayed on each screen. So yeah, this is actually a really bad GIF I did because it's like 30 FPS or something, and it's really low quality, and it's smoother than that on the platform. But the idea is that you can always play with two things. One is scaling, and the other is cutting off content when it doesn't fit. So how you do that? Usually when you create a web page, a front-end application, you will play around with media queries to make it compatible with phones and tablets, etc. But it's not enough for digital signage, because as you can see, you can create apps that are just a strip long. And obviously there's no phone that is like, there's no phone like that. So you have to be able to display your output even in that settings of the layout. So media queries can work, but they're not always the answer. You see, there are a lot of practices, I will never say best practices, because what I use really is not the best practice, but I have tried and played around with a lot of things. So really, my way of doing mostly the design is to start with a basic CSS file, probably add some media queries if the app really needs that, and then most of the things will happen through JavaScript, and it's a combination of JavaScript and CSS. Also, in CSS, when I say CSS, I never play with pixels. So all the sizes are percentages, either relative or absolute, or viewport width, height, and stuff like that. And why is that? Because as you can see here, we want to always be able to show the data that we want to show. So obviously, when you have a screen that's going to be really small, the data will be smaller, but it's really easier to define them by percentages than pixels in that case, because the media queries then can be way too many, and it's not easy to track after a while. So yeah, just a note that I have tried even calculating pixels with percentages with JavaScript, replacing the CSS style sheet, applying it to a font size, and then using rem as a percentage system. If it works for you, I'm more than happy to see the results, because in the end of the day, it's most about, I believe, doing the correct output than doing the best practices, as we used to call them in programming. Of course, I never published an app like that, but playing around is really fun to see how the JavaScript can help you doing the design that you want. So yeah, I said that I do play with percentages and with pixels, and here comes the zoom method that I am mentioning. So since you do have a screen that you don't know the size of, it would be really nice to be able to say that whatever the TV, whatever the layout, I want to always see that as a 90/20, 1080 pixel, let's say, screen. And so there are other times that you want to actually know the real pixels to apply media queries and stuff like that, so that you can know when to cut off the information and when to make slides. So it was really useful, and it is really useful that we have different zoom methods that we can use and apply, so that you can actually do all the designs that you want. So a little bit more about the design, and that's the last part. It's about the rate of refresh that we have. This is here a screenshot from a clock. So it's 3 p.m. to 26 minutes and 37 seconds. So here there are two things I want to say about the text into digital signage, because as I said earlier, I'm not working with pixels that much as of percentages. So usually when the design team comes to me with a project, I try to recalculate everything into percentages and apply that. Usually, and the most common case is that the user will have much more data to be displayed than what we usually think when we are in development phase. For example, when you're doing a social media app, there will be users that will have titles more than 100 words long, but that's okay. That's why we do implement with JavaScript usually different ways to fit all of the content to a specific div. So that way we never lose information, we do always show it, and then it's up to their data to control the design. And I was really happy when I found out about monospace font families. So monospace font families, most of you probably know it, but they are font families that have the same width for all the characters that they do support. And it was really important and really helpful when we were working on the clock, because since every second all the characters might change, it was jittering around and was not looking good in the eye. And then we just used the monospace font family, and everything was solved. So no extra JavaScript, no extra CSS, just a simple font family can solve your problems sometimes. So that was all for the design part of how to think about an app and how to build it. But as I said in the start, we do have offline apps, and also because you don't have a user right there at the spot to be able to distinguish the errors that might come to the screen, you will have to be able to fix them yourself. And when I say yourself, I mean as a developer when you write the code for the app. So we do have the option, and that's the only option we give usually to an app, that you will have an auto-refresh functionality. So for example, you can understand that, let's say for a social media app, you will need to pull new data every half an hour, let's say. So you know that we will try to collect the new data every half an hour. And I say we do try to collect data because there are a lot of times that the internet connection might not be stable, we might have some errors. And that's when we want to keep content so that we can show it when it's offline or it does have errors. We do that in many ways, actually. The easiest one is that we don't explicitly write the code down for that, because if the user has an app playing 24/7, then it's always live, so cache for the browser does all that on itself. But there are a lot of times that, since we do have to support a playlist, and it is the most common case, we do have to be able to store some kind of data or even a screen of it. So that's why I say here Yodeck specifics. I haven't really researched how the other digital signage providers do on that part, but we do have 3 ways that you can call from the API that we had to talk with a player from the app, that they help us with that. And the first one is just a proxy, which really helps with terminating all the coarse errors that you might have in your app. And also it does support cache capabilities so that you can have stored data once you have had a successful request, so that it minimizes the API request code to the customer's database or whatever they use. And also you're really sure that it's going to be displayed again on the next time the app pops up in a playlist. We have local storage, which is self-explanatory also. We can save values to the player and then restore them and do whatever we want with them. Usually, what we can do also with this is actually impact the experience of the app and what it is being shown, because you can save some data, but you can also save states. So since we're working with slideshows, it is really common use to save the state of which was the latest slideshow that I showed on the screen, and then you can keep going from that so that the user can always see all of his data onto the screen, not just a part of them. And the last one, which is really powerful, I think, it's the static option. So static is really simple, really. What's happening is that when the app runs, you can call the static method. So what that does is that the player just takes a snapshot of the full screen and saves it as an image file. So the player, the next time that's going to run this app, instead of powering up a whole browser and loading all those extensions and stuff like that, it just loads an image, a screenshot. So it's really good for low RAM devices like the Power BI, or even the loading times. It really helps. There are also some apps, for example, when you want to display just a static text, because usually you might want to add some nice functionalities that do require JavaScript and CSS. This is all going through an app that just loads up the text and then takes a screenshot of it and the player handles the rest with the static method. So it's really good, it's really helpful, and everyone's happy. So yeah, after all those years and after the errors that we have had on the development process, even on the testing phase, the team that's responsible for the apps that I was working for came down to a checklist that we always check before releasing an app. Actually, we usually check that before creating a PR. So in that way, everyone knows that the app is stable, the app can be displayed on all the screens, and it really helped out finding out bugs that you have never tried because you never thought of. It really minimizes the QA effort that they will have to put on the testing. And it's really a nice process to have a checklist before going and creating a PR. And you can see that we do explicitly say works in layouts and playlists because this is the most common use for our users, or a combination of these two, because you can have playlists in layouts and the other way around. And that makes things really weird, and you have to look at a lot of small cases just to fix a little pixel that's going off the screen. So that was all actually about the apps. To sum it up, the thing that I would like for you to keep in mind is that in digital signage you don't have interaction, so now the interaction is just setting up timers, actually, intervals and timeouts. The screen sizes can vary, and along with them the usage in layout, which is, you can think of it as a new screen type. We do have to support automatic refresh with fallback, either images or other medias, so that you can always display something on the screen because nobody likes watching a black screen. And that was all. Along with that, some of the things will be revamped about how we're building apps, and that is going to be coming soon. So that was all. If you have any questions, feel free.